Firstly, I think, yes, it's absolutely time to just get on with getting the country fully open and getting back to normal. I think we'll look back on the past 2 years as one of the most catastrophic acts of self-harm that we've seen outside of wartime on our economy, our health, our mental health. Lateral flow tests ending for free. Well, they're not for free. They cost £6 billion so far. They cost £20 for a box, all funded by the taxpayer. It's got to be paid back sometime. So hurrah that that's ending. As far as Djokovic goes, at last a sportsman with a backbone.
Pause on Djokovic, actually, because Scarlett, before we come on to Djokovic, I'll ask you about this testing, because I think it's wonderful that,
I'm sure you do.
This mass testing. I think it's excellent, long overdue. However, I also know that there are some people, particularly people that are vulnerable in society, that are actually quite afraid of this kind of, the bonfire of restrictions, for want of a better word. What's your thoughts?
Oh, yeah. I mean, people I'm seeing this evening are going to see her elderly mother, and they test before they see the mother because they want to keep her away from COVID. I mean, I have to say, I had surgery very recently. People tested before they came to see me. Unfortunately, I did have to go on a bus. And guess what? I had COVID last week, which really helped.
What, from the bus?
Well, where else would I have had it? Because people can't be bothered to wear masks, right? I was vulnerable. I mean, that is the problem, is there are vulnerable people. And what I've always felt about these restrictions, and it's just like the letting it go, is it's one extreme to the other. You had restrictions and people weren't allowed to sunbathe and they weren't allowed to sit on benches and ridiculous things like that. And now, people with COVID can go anywhere and it really doesn't matter. And people who are worried about COVID, the elderly, people like me, I mean, it is worrying. So it's very, very difficult.
What would you like then? So you've just said that you are worried about COVID. What would you like? Would you like these restrictions, masks, whatever, to continue indefinitely?
I think on public transport, actually, that people should go on wearing masks.
Why? There's no science to back that position up.
Actually, there is, Martin.
Where?
If you wear a mask, right, you are less likely. It's just you're less likely to give somebody a cold or the flu.
It's a different thing.
What did you say?
It's a different way. It's a different transmission.
It's an airborne virus, though. It does reduce the transmission.
It reduces
the chance of giving it to someone else.
There is no credible scientific advice to show that masks have helped reduce.
It doesn't necessarily help protect you as the wearer, but it does. There is evidence that it helps stop.
The interesting thing about masks is unlike
they don't work.
No, the interesting thing about masks is actually they protect other people. So when people say, when Sajid Javid or Boris says, it's about personal responsibility, it's whether you're willing to take responsibility
for
other
politics.
Whether you're willing to take responsibility for other people, right? Is the thing about vaccinations is it's partly herd immunity. Mostly it's about, I know because I've had 3 vaccinations that having COVID wasn't a big deal. Didn't help. Hospital wasn't pleased, but it didn't help. But actually, if you're an 85-year-old woman, as this mother is, obviously you do not want to get COVID, right? So what you're saying is that either vulnerable people have to isolate. I mean, because it means they can't see anybody if you aren't tested. So who do you see if you're vulnerable?
Well, if we look at the risks, the actual risks of the new variant compared to Alpha, compared to it's much, much smaller.
If you're an 85-year-old woman, who do you see? That's what I'm trying to say.
That's no way to form a debate. We look at the social risk across the board, and the science shows us that the Omicron variant is no more deadly than flu.
I know, Martin.
So do we close the world because of flu?
I'm trying to actually talk about reality. Based
on science.
No, what you're saying is this is real. What I'm saying is if you are an 85-year-old woman, what do you do? Do you say, well, I might or might not die of it? Or do you say, I actually don't want to see people unless they've been tested?
What would you do about what would that person do about the flu?
I don't think you wouldn't go out with the flu, though. I mean, if I had the flu, I'd self-isolate without the government needing me without the government telling me to do that. I think that's just... Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't go around on the tube if I had the flu, because I think that would be fairly socially irresponsible and selfish to do that.
We've never done that before.
No. In the flu, you typically can't get out of bed. So it'd be,
Absolutely.
I mean, they say if you have the flu, you couldn't
But
pick up a
what,
£20
like now,
note at
so
the end
I've
of the
got
bed.
a cold, for example. I've got a cold today.
Well, I think that's far less serious. But I think there are immunocompromised people still out there who the vaccine has not worked with. And I don't think that we should have any more restrictions in terms of lockdowns or social distancing. But I don't think it is this big kind of threat to liberty to ask people just, for the moment, in the winter, to wear a mask on the tube, say. And with the testing for the lateral flow test, I think there are certain circumstances, going into a care home, for example, where you should have to take a test beforehand. I don't think it's that. I think this is this big threat to liberty to have to do that.
Yeah, see, this kind of divides opinion, I have to say. I mean, I don't wear a mask. I don't mind admitting that. I don't like the whole kind of sentiment that if I wear one, I'm a good person, and if I don't wear one, I'm a bad person. That sentiment doesn't wash with me, because these things are either deeply effective in terms of reducing transmission or they're not. And I think the science is out for them. And I think that masks do have a lot of unintended consequences to them, which is why I don't wear them. But if I was going to see an extremely vulnerable person, if it was someone that I don't know, my mum or whatever, like if you're describing an 85-year-old woman, then I probably would be sensible, and I would do things that I perhaps wouldn't ordinarily do, but I certainly am not prepared to do those things all day, every day. Does that make me selfish? You will tell me if you think it does. I am absolutely sure about that.